One of my colleagues who were in ministerial school together told a story. Settle down a minute here. It's really a powerful story, and it's been relayed down and down. I think she actually got it from her older sister, who's now a retired CSL minister. But this lady went to go pick up her wife from work, and traffic was good, everything worked in her favor. She got there early. There happened to be a car wash there, and she had enough time, so she thought she'd buzz through the car wash while she was waiting, and she washed her car and came out and parked in the parking lot of this big mall over in the shade where she could do it. And she got out her chamois and she began to polish her car. And as she did, she looked across and, oh no, here comes this guy. And he's dirty and disheveled and unkempt and kind of shuffling. And she thought, oh no, I hope he doesn't come over here. And sure enough, he beelines straight for her, and she's thinking, oh, he's going to ask for money. Oh, and so she just busily continued polishing her car, and he walked right up by her, but he didn't say anything, and he kind of went on past, and he went adjacent to a bus stop, and he sat down on the curb, and he didn't say anything. And she thought, well, dodge that bullet. And then he said, pretty car. And she said, well, thank you. And she's expecting the follow-up line asking for money. But he didn't say anything. And being the good CSL minister, she was listening to the still small voice, and what came to her in the background was, ask him if he needs help. I'm not going to do that. He wants money. Ask him if he needs help. So she finally gave in, and she turned and she said, do you need any help? And he looked at her and said, don't we all? Aww. Well, good morning. Welcome to the Alaska Center for Spiritual Living. Thank you for coming out today. It's a beautiful June day in Alaska. Thank you for being here, and thank you for being online. If you're watching online, either live or watching it later, it is indeed a privilege for your time, and I thank you. And thank you, Aaron and Jessica. You know that's one of my favorite songs, and my, you do that well. So beautiful. Thank you. Kind of hard to get up afterwards sometimes, so it's trying to be serious here. And I don't know what this visioning thing is. This business of visioning is serious. We're not here to fool around. The title of my talk today is The Three Caminos. And it is wonderful to be back. It's really great. Missed everyone. Before we left, we received all of these wonderful well wishes and everything, and it's really touching. It felt so good to have all these well wishes. But the Camino isn't a vacation. It's not, you don't go there to sit on the beach and sip drinks out of, little glasses with umbrellas in them stuck in fruit. It's hard, and it hurts, and it's not fun, but it is extremely rewarding in many, many ways. And today we're going to look at some of those. And the title of my talk, The Three Caminos, isn't about the 3 times that Ann and I went to Spain to walk across Spain, but rather the 3 experiences that I have had. I think that no 2 Caminos are the same. Ann's is different than mine, and they're all different. They're as different as there are different people, and it is how we react to the walk that is the real key to to our Caminos. And the 3 Caminos that I have identified, first of all, there is the physical one. That is, wake up in the morning and walk. One of the things, my favorite descriptions of the Camino, I don't know where I got this, but it's so true, but the pilgrim wakes, walks, stops, eats, wash clothes, wash pilgrim, sleeps, repeat. And you do that day after day after day, and after a month or so, you kind of fall into a routine. So the first is that physical thing of actually walking. The second is an emotional experience. The sacred reading, Linda, was dead spot on. That really described that emotional kind of experience that we can have. You know, even though you walk together, and Ann and I walk the Camino together, we don't stand next to each other and walk lockstep, you know. Sometimes one of us gets ahead further than the other. I don't think I was ever ahead. But, you know, sometimes we'd be a mile or so apart, and when you walk for 2 or 3 or 4 hours by yourself, it gives you this opportunity to go within and to experience things. And it's just like Jane Beach said, and you know, you go through times of beating yourself up and, oh, why did I do that? Or why didn't I do that? Or, and you get a chance to process all of that stuff. And for me at least, it alternates between beating yourself up and then really enjoying and embracing some of the wonderful things that have happened. A profound emotional experience. And then the third Camino is a spiritual one. And this is where, as you walk and you're in the silence, we get an opportunity to examine and feel our relationship with our higher power. And it doesn't make any difference what it is, it's my higher power. It's not yours, it's mine. And the same thing, everyone, just as we all have different Caminos, we all have our own relationship with that which is greater than we are. And that can be powerful in itself. And once again, Jane Beach made some references to that and how uplifting that can be when we can embrace that thing. So those are the 3 Caminos, a physical, emotional, and spiritual. My second point is, don't we all? We all need a little help. After Ann and I finished the Camino, we arrived in Santiago. We sat in Obradorio Square. We haven't ever done that before. We actually laid down and looked up at the cathedral. And what an experience it was, because the first time when we did it, we got to the big square and the cathedral is all in scaffolding and you couldn't even see anything. And it was such a, I don't know, I wouldn't say depressing, but it wasn't what we expected. It was let down. And this time we were able to sit there and do that, and the square was filled, all kinds of people, BC Greenos and all kinds of tourists and visitors. Sometimes I felt like a animal in a zoo or something. Oh, that's a real one. They walked. The tourists would come and point at you. But we had made it, and we were sort of basking in the accomplishment of it, and yet at the same time still feeling a lot of the emotions and everything else. So we had made it, side story here, we were so focused and we're so used to carrying our packs and doing everything. We went to the pilgrim's office carrying our packs. We walked through this line and signed up online and everything. We still got our packs on. So, and we got our certificados and all the other things. We checked in to our little place we're going to spend the night, and we went to a late lunch. And there was this little tiny bar, but they had these I don't know the right name, Ann knows what it is, but they're green peppers. And they look like jalapenos, but they're not. They're not hot at all. They're really good. And I don't know how they cook them, boil them or something. I don't know what they do. But they're really good. And Ann wanted to go get some of those, and this place had them. So we went there, tiny little thing. But then in the back of the bar, there were 2 sets of stairs, one going up, one down. And there were maybe, I don't know, 4 or 5 tables in up and down. We happened to be up, and we sat down. And I observed after a few moments that everybody in the little upper half was speaking English. So, you know me, I started gabbing with everybody. And the people across from us, there were a couple, 2 ladies, and people were sharing their experiences and some of the things on the Camino. And this lady said that she almost quit. She had hit the physical barrier. She had blisters. Her knees hurt. And she was feeling waves of sadness and depression. And it's all that emotional Camino coming up. And she was just filled with that. And she just wanted to quit. She just wanted to be done. But there is a place on the Camino that has a wine fuente. Now, a fuente is a fountain. And on our first Camino in 16, Ann was the spotter of fuentes. She could find the fuentes where you could get water, good fresh water. And Spain is filled with artesian wells. There's a lot of artesian wells around it, and that's where pilgrims can go to get water. We observe too towns with municipal water systems and the locals driving over with their water bottles and filling their water bottles with the fuente water and taking it home. But this place is in a monastery, and there is a regular water fuente, and next to it is a wine fuente. And it's just a tap, and you can get wine out of it. Well, this gal, she wanted to make it as far as the wine fuente. That was kind of a goal to her, and she wanted to get there. And in spite of the sadness and the depression and everything, she did held that as a goal, and she walked, and she finally made it. She got there, and she went up, and she got some water, and it was cool and sweet and wonderful. And she hit the tap for the wine, and nothing. And she just thought, it's fitting. What more can possibly be wrong? And she sat there with a defeatist attitude. She felt like she'd been beaten. And she's relaying all this to us at lunch and how down she felt. And then another pilgrim walked up and said, "What's the matter, dear?" And she said, "There is no wine." She said, "God, 9:30 in the morning. It's kind of early for him to be out." She said, "Let me check." And sure enough, there's no wine. So she said, "Watch my pack." So she left her pack there, and she beat feet up to this monastery, and she came back with a monk. And he came back, "Yeah, you're right, there's no wine." And so he went over to this little panel, and he did a thing. And he flips a switch, and now we've got wine. We can all use a little help. Don't we all? Reminds me of Rumi's poem. You know, when I think of the emotional Camino, Rumi wrote a poem, "The Guest House." This being human is a guest house. Every morning, a new arrival. It's just like the Camino. Every morning, there are new arrivals. Excuse me. A joy, a depression, a meanness, some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all. Even if they are a crowd of sorrows who violently sweep your house empty of its furniture, still treat each guest honorably He may be clearing you out for some new delight. The dark thought, the shame, the malice, meet them at the door laughing and invite them in. Be grateful for whatever comes, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond. And I think that's one of the lessons from the Camino, is to welcome those emotions and embrace them for what they are. Marshall Rosenberg, he wrote all that stuff on nonviolent communication. Regardless of our many differences, we all have the same needs. What differs is the strategy, excuse me, for fulfilling these needs. Criticism, judgment, and violence are all tragic expressions of unmet needs. Excuse me, I'm going to get some water. I think I have a picture. On one of our first nights in Santiago, we went to the restaurant where we met with Sarah. And you remember Sarah from Germany, from our first community. She came for my ordination and everything. Well, we wanted to go back and relive that. So thank you, Susan. So we went to that restaurant, and there were divine fingerprints all over it. We got the same table. It's a second floor. It's a little tiny. It's a great little place. And we sat down, and two German girls were seated then right next to us. And this is the two German girls. And we started to talk with them. And we asked them if they were pilgrims, if they had walked, and they kind of laughed and said, no, not really. Well, we walked, but we only walked for 5 days, and we did the Portuguese route, and we just wanted to come over and see what all this Camino stuff is about. We wanted to see what it is, to see if we really wanted to come and do a big Camino de Santiago. And they said, but we really had a great time, and we did have some kind of funny experiences. And they shared then how one day they stopped, and I don't know if we have another picture here. She shared how they took this picture of the two of them. Now, those rays, those beams that you see coming down, and I think we can see them, those weren't in real life. As they sat there, it was just the two of them in front of the ivy on the wall. What are these two beams that are coming down on them? And they were like, whoa, what is this? So for whatever reason, then they became, they felt that urge, and they had gotten, they called them sweets, but there was little candies, probably little Ricolas. Thank you, Susan. And so they gave them to other pilgrims as they came by. And they had such a good feeling about passing out the little sweets on the Camino that the rest of their trip, the last 3 or 4 mornings, they went to the store and bought more sweets, and they spent their day passing out little candies. Of course not. We're not going to have an experience on the Camino. We just are here for fun. I read the 2 thank you notes, and that's not any different at all than the 2 ladies passing out the candies. They made other people feel better because of their generosity. And that's what you do every single month. Every month, we pass out candies. It's a little bit bigger than candies, We average about $500 a month that we give to a nonprofit here in Anchorage, generally in Alaska. And so I want you all to feel good about it, just like they felt good about it. The Camino is just a metaphor for life. All of the things that we learn on the Camino, we practice in our daily living. My third point today is, I better get going, all you need is love. And we have another picture, I think, next. Oh, we got all three of them together. We were at dinner one night, and we were at Tia Teresa's. It was actually a pension. Ann knows the right name for it, but Tia Teresa's. And I'll always remember it because, they have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pilgrims coming through all the time. But for whatever reason, Teresa, we didn't even know that she was Teresa. She took a shine to us. And when we left the next morning, she ran to the door, and she opens the door and she's waving, adios, adios. We sat at dinner, and a nice lady came in and sat down at the table next to us. Why does that always happen? And we were there, and great conversation with this gal, and she was talking about her Camino, and it was wonderful. And another lady approached, and she started to say something, and gal that was sitting next to us, I don't want to hear anything about it. Get out of here. Whoa. And she said, but I just wanted to go away. Whoa. And eventually the second lady got up and left and went back, and first lady, very emotional, sat there for a little while, and she finally kind of returned to being a civil human being. And wow. Everybody scattered, went their ways. And a couple of days later, I was walking down the Camino, I think probably a couple miles behind Ann. And she's a lot faster than I am. And somebody came up beside me, and it was lady number two that had came over and tried to talk to the lady that was next to us. And I talked with her for a minute, and I finally said, what was the deal? What was going on with that lady at Tia Teresa's? And she said, I don't know. She said, we got to the albergue and we went to go in. We have our baby with us. And she just threw a fit. There's no place for babies on the Camino. Oh. No babies. And she was so irate about it. She went to the owner. She tried getting them kicked out. It was really a lot. Well, there they are. This is Caroline. You can see Caroline's the lady, and she's carrying little Frida, who is 14 months old, and her husband, Jonas. On the right, you can see Frida's on Jonas' back, and she's rolling back, laughing, and Frida was a good little baby. Really, really cute. As we walked, I don't know what it was, but something was going in my brain, and I began to talk about the first woman. And Caroline was upset. She said she had no right to attack us like that. And Frida was being really good. She wasn't crying or anything, and she was just so upset. And I don't know what got into me, and I said, yeah, but that lady was on her own Camino. And we don't know what she went through. We don't know what brought her to this point. But what we do know is that we can love her. We can love her through that and beyond that. We don't know if she had a miscarriage, or maybe she had lost a baby of her own earlier, but whatever it was, whatever the trigger it was, we can let that appearance go, and we can just surround her with love. And Caroline didn't say a word, and we walked, and we walked, And finally she said, you know, you're right. And that is the type of transformation that we can experience on the Camino. Ernest Holmes wrote in Words That Heal Today, and this is, I don't know what it's called, but I'm quoting Ernest, who is quoting the Bible. He says, Jesus said, judge not according to appearances. That is, do not be confused by the conditions around you. The waves may be turbulent and the boat tossed. This appearance is real enough, but do not be confused over it. Be still and know that I am God. The inner spirit is proclaiming its own nature. It is announcing its own program. And it is that inner nature that we can touch on the Camino. Conclusion. Final picture that I have today. There's Don and Ann sitting at a, oh my, I didn't realize who all was in the picture. The group in front of there called the Crazies. It's a long story, but this is so typical of, this was a pilgrim meal. We're all sitting there eating family style. I don't know who got up and turned around and took the picture, but that's such a typical thing. And there's Ann and I with the Crazies. And I'll go back to Marshall Rosenberg. Regardless of our many differences, we all have the same needs. What differs is the strategy for fulfilling those needs. Criticism, judgment, and violence are all tragic expressions of unmet needs. So in a rest of the story moment, I want to go back to the story of Don't We All? And this is what Catherine McDowell, my fellow student, observed and wrote about it. After the bum said, "Don't we all?" I was feeling high and mighty, successful and important, above a bum in the street, until those three words hit me like a 12-gauge shotgun. Don't we all? I needed help. Maybe not for bus fare or a place to sleep, but I needed help. I reached in my wallet and I gave him not only enough for bus fare, but enough to get a warm meal and shelter for the day. Those three little words ring true. No matter how much you have, no matter how much you have accomplished, you need help too. No matter how little you have, no matter how loaded you are with problems, even without money or a place to sleep, you can give help. Even if it's just a compliment, you can give that. Or even a Ricola. You never know when you may see someone that appears to have it all. They are waiting on you to give them what they don't have. A different perspective on life, a glimpse at something beautiful, a respite from daily chaos that only you, through a torn world, can see. Maybe the man was just a homeless stranger wandering the streets. Maybe he was more than that. Maybe he was sent by a power that's great and wise to minister to a soul too comfortable in themselves. Maybe God looked down and called an angel, dressed him like a bum and said, "Go minister to that woman cleaning her car. That woman needs help." Don't we all? And so it is from this platform of awareness of our own connectedness, our own oneness, our own need a little help. Don't we all? That I invite the practitioners to join me in holding our congregation in love and light, and simply knowing that as we move through this thing called life, as we walk the Camino of life, that the things that come to us are all there for a reason, and they are there for our fulfillment, our growth, and we can all use a little help. And we reach in and we help one another. Just as the Pilgrims help one another, so too as we go through life in Alaska, we help one another with our tithes and our offerings, our gifts. We do so with our actions, with our words. We do so with love in our hearts, for love is greater than all. And so we can just give thanks. We can give thanks for our awareness of the power and the presence of God in all, in one another, in ourselves, and in all of the circumstances that we face. We give thanks. Now we can just step back and we can know that there is a powerful, powerful force that is working with us for our own benefit. That infinite, powerful force wants us to be happy. It wants to experience joy through us. And so we just step back, we let it go, we let it be, and so it is.